Hey, why don't you marry me? I'm better suited for you than that plain Emily, right? As she said this, my sister draped her arm over my husband's shoulder and sidled up to him. Watching this, all of the restraint I had held on to until now crumbled. I felt the tightly wound thread within me snap.
Stop messing around. You've always been like this.
I shouted this and lunged at my sister. Just at that moment, she toppled over ungracefully, still in that awkward position. My sister opened her eyes wide. A moment of silence fell. This is the story of a certain ending that my atrocious sister and I reached. My name is Emily, 27 years old. After graduating from the literature department of a state university, I've been working as a librarian in a public library. During my lunch break, when I checked my smartphone, there was a message from my sister, Michelle, who is a year older than me. I'm going to use your blue sandals. They still look like new, but that's fine, right? I let out a sigh. My sister has always been like this, since we were kids. It seems that whenever I had something, she perceived it as better than hers. She quickly covets it, gets bored, and then dumps it back onto me. My sister, even from a family member's perspective, is beautiful. I remember when we were kids, she was adored by adults and often compared to a French doll. She went to a famous private university on recommendation and apparently even won a beauty pageant there. Now she's leveraging her beauty and working as a receptionist at a well-known company. She's living a life straight out of a fairy tale. In contrast, I'm truly plain. I have a very typical American face, and people often tell me, Emily, you're like a traditional doll. Maybe it's because of my sister's constant bullying, but I'm often told that I'm very shy and introverted. Since childhood, while my sister was playing with dolls, I was the kind of kid who would sit alone and quietly read a book. But that's fine with me. I want to live a life surrounded by books. I've studied hard with that sole intention, and now I'm working as a librarian, a job that I've always dreamed of, processing checkouts with barcodes, finding books that facility users are searching for. While working at the library, I always remember something that's from my high school days. I attended the same high school as my sister, and I was exhausted from remarks and stares like, "Oh, is this what Michelle's sister is like?" My only joy was writing book reviews of my favorite books as part of the library committee activities. Most regular high school students who are busy with clubs and romance would not pay attention to such things, but I've kept writing, hoping that they would understand the charm of my favorite books, even though I knew that no one would read them. However, there was just one person who would enthusiastically read my reviews. This male student would borrow the books that I reviewed, one after another. I felt a sense of validation, which made me happy. He was a year ahead of me in school, and our relationship was nothing more than that of a student and a librarian. Due to my introverted personality, we had never spoken, except for the borrowing procedures. Despite this, I had always remembered his name on the library card. I wondered how he was doing now. Does he still like reading books? Occasionally, I thought about him, the person who made me continue to love books. Then one day, a marriage proposal came in for my older sister. At 28, my sister Michelle was of marriageable age, so it was only natural for such talks to come up. "What? A blind date with this guy?" Michelle exaggeratedly threw the blind date photos and the man's profile on the table. The loud sound startled me as I was eating. "Well, what kind of person was he?" my mother asked. "He's just this chubby and nerdy-looking guy, and he's currently a temp. Why do I have to go on a blind date with such a guy?" "Well, if you don't like him, just reject him." Without thinking, I said that. "But he's related to some executive at our client's company. I can't just reject him. It's terrible. Michelle made a troubled face, then suddenly her expression brightened. Oh, I know. Emily, you should go on the blind date. I was shocked at her suggestion. Seeing my wide-eyed surprise, Michelle hurriedly explained. You're a respectable nerd yourself, right? You might hit it off with him. No matter how I look at it, he's not my type. But he might be perfect for you, since you're not exactly a looker. So could you please take my place this weekend? What are you talking about? I don't want to do it either. And it would be rude to the other party. And how should I explain me going in your place? It'll work out as long as you go on the date. But don't you dare tarnish my reputation. Michelle forcefully shoved the open blind date photo and profile in my direction. Looking at them, I let out a surprised sound. What? Do you have a problem? No, not at all. Thanks, Michelle. I'll accept this match. Huh? You actually like that chubby nerd? Well, I'll give him to you. I look forward to the birth of the nerdy couple. Ignoring Michelle's teasing voice, I continued to gaze at the blind date photo and the man's profile. Then, on the day of the blind date, I first apologized for Michelle's rudeness to the man on the other side, and then conveyed my wish to have a blind date with him instead. The man sitting across from me was indeed chubby, and had a nerdy aura about him, but he still looks like he used to. Yes, the man on this blind date was none other than the man who used to borrow books after reading my reviews. He, too, looked at me straight on and let out a small, were you by any chance the librarian at a high school? Yes, I was. I remembered you as well. From there, we hit it off, talking about our high school days and books, and thus began my relationship with him. Thomas was the same school year as Michelle, but she didn't seem to remember him at all. During one of our dates, Thomas said this to me. Honestly, Emily, if Michelle had shown up, I would have turned her down. Her personality is quite infamous, after all. Well, given who I am, I guess Michelle would have probably rejected me first. I'm truly sorry about what happened with my sister back then, but I was really happy to see you again, Thomas. Plus, I think you're wonderful. If you're worried about your appearance, why don't we try to lose some weight together? You're right. I've become so immersed in my work that I've stopped exercising and caring about my appearance. I'll try harder so that you won't dislike me. I'm glad to hear that, but you know, I would never dislike you just because of your appearance. We had such conversations and our dates went smoothly. Eventually, I received a proposal from Thomas and we decided to get married. My sister, who said, I've seen the fat guy's face before, didn't attend, but at the meeting of our families, everyone blessed us in a warm atmosphere. Afterward, we found a new home and decided to start our life together. And then, on the day of our wedding, having a wedding in a church in this day and age is just like plain old Emily. That dress suits you, just like a real American doll. As usual, my sister ridiculed me. Can you stop with those remarks for today? We're about to meet the family. Feeling miserable for being insulted by my sister, even in my wedding dress, Thomas and his family arrived. Good morning. We look forward to today. When Thomas, dressed in his traditional suit, appeared, my sister let out a small, "What?"
And for good reason. Thomas had worked hard to transform his appearance with me, and he had become strikingly handsome. Before the ceremony began, my sister whispered in my ear,
"What the heck? He looks nothing like the photo from before."
Thomas worked hard. He already had a beautiful face. He just looked dull in that photo because he was overweight and had a bad haircut. I thought he had had plastic surgery. It's great that a porcelain doll like you could marry a man who looks like a movie star. Despite enduring my sister's sarcasm, we managed to get through the wedding ceremony. We had a small reception at the church, with only those who were important to us. As we were about to leave, with the happiness of being blessed. It happened. "Hello there, Thomas. Thank you for marrying my ugly little sister." My drunk sister came up to us and said this.
"Well, Emily isn't ugly at all. Thank you for today."
"Shouldn't you head home, sister?" Ignoring my words, my sister continued. "So, Thomas, you've changed your appearance, but what about your job? I heard you were a temp, right?"
"Yes, I am currently working as a temp."
"Oh, I couldn't stand having a husband who's a temp. I'm currently dating a startup CEO. I might get married soon."
"Oh, congratulations."
"Hey, sister, Thomas restrained me from responding with his hand and gave a small shake of his head.
"Thank you for coming today, sister. Please be careful on your way home."
My sister, who was told this by Thomas, left after saying, "Be very happy." "Thomas, I'm really sorry about my sister."
"It's all right. People like her won't change, no matter what you say. But Emily, you've had a tough time. Let's strive for happiness from now on."
"Thomas, thank you." And thus my married life with Thomas began. In fact, Thomas was working as a temp while trying to make it as a novelist. He had fallen in love with reading after he read some book reviews I wrote in high school, and it inspired him to start writing himself. He's only had a few pieces published in literary magazines so far, but I know that's still an impressive achievement. He's been getting paid for his manuscripts, but he admitted there was still some financial uncertainty, which is why he was balancing his job as a temp with his writing. "Thomas, I have a job too, and we have some savings. Why don't you focus solely on your writing?"
"Emily, you're always so supportive. Thank you. I'll do my best."
So Thomas quit his job and dedicated himself to writing. Life wasn't easy, but I loved watching Thomas passionately dive into his manuscripts, and that kept us going. Then one day, we got a call from my sister, Michelle. She was engaged to the startup CEO she had mentioned. "So next week, he's coming over to meet the family before we get married. You should come too. I really don't want to introduce him to you and your jobless husband, but it would be odd if you weren't there. Make sure you dress appropriately." Despite my annoyance at Michelle's attitude, I knew we had to attend her engagement and wedding. With that in mind, Thomas and I decided to attend the family meeting. "I'm sorry you have to miss your important event that day, Thomas."
"It's okay, Emily. She's your sister after all."
When we arrived at the meeting place, Michelle, wearing a smug expression, was there. "Welcome, the antisocial couple. Be nice to my darling, will you?" Ignoring her jibes, we entered the restaurant and exchanged greetings with Michelle's fiancé. He was a flashy, handsome man, a stark contrast to Thomas, but he did look capable in his profession. "I'm Emily, Michelle's sister. It's nice to meet you."
"And I'm Thomas, Emily's husband. Nice to meet you."
As we exchanged greetings, Michelle's fiancé, Larry, also bowed his head and said,
"Nice to meet you too."
I tried my best to ignore my sister, who was beaming victoriously next to him. Just then, Thomas's phone rang.
"I'm sorry, this is important. I need to step outside for a moment."
Thomas left the room, and I felt nervous. Despite having dinner with our parents, Michelle, and her fiancé, my mind was elsewhere. Then, a flustered Thomas returned to the room and whispered something in my ear. "Really? Congratulations, Thomas! That's amazing!" I couldn't help but raise my voice. "What's the matter? Not at a time like this!" My mother asked, a surprised look on her face. "Thomas's novel won a major literary award, and it's going to be made into a movie."
"What? Is that true? Well done, Thomas."
"Yes, that's great, Thomas. It was worth it. All that support Emily has given you." Our parents were overjoyed.
"Congratulations, Thomas. I'm delighted to hear such wonderful news."
Larry also applauded and offered his congratulations.
"Let's drink to celebrate. I'm sorry, but I need to give some interviews about the award."
"All right, I guess that's about it for Thomas and Emily. Just as Mom was about to say this, something unthinkable happened. Michelle, who was sitting next to Larry, suddenly stood up and walked over to us, positioning herself between Thomas and me. "Hey, sis, what the—"
Shut up, ugly.
Michelle's voice was icy.
Hey, Thomas, why don't we get married? I mean, I'm far more suited for a successful award-winning author like you than someone like Emily, right?
As she said this, she placed a hand on Thomas's shoulder and drew herself close to him. I felt like everything was crumbling down around me. Michelle always wants what I have, and once she's tired of it, she shoves it aside. She constantly looks down on Thomas and me, belittling us. Yet because we are family, because she's my sister, I tolerated her. But no more. I felt a tension inside me snap. "That's enough, Michelle. You've always been like this," I yelled, lunging at her. But she lost her footing and fell back awkwardly. Thomas, who had been leaning on Michelle, jumped back swiftly. Michelle, fallen in an ungraceful heap on the carpet, widened her eyes in surprise. I froze.
What? What are you doing?
That's what I should be asking. What were you thinking?
Thomas's voice was as cold as ice. He looked down at Michelle as if she were something dirty.
I mean, I was offering to marry you.
Even if I was the last man on earth, I'd say no. Emily is the only one for me for life.
What? What's so good about Emily? I'm prettier. My figure is better.
Emily is not only more beautiful on the outside, but also on the inside compared to you. Also, she's been by my side all this time. That's why I won these awards. Something you could never do.
Thomas came over to me and put his arm around my shoulders as he said this. I could feel my anger towards Michelle melting away. Warm tears streamed down my face.
What the hell? Even though I made all these advances, you rejected me.
Michelle's face turned bright red, her voice trembling. Michelle, what are you doing? Do you even realize what kind of occasion this is?
Isn't Larry supposed to be your fiancé?
Our parents, who had come back to their senses, quickly reprimanded her, looking as if she just woke up from a dream. Michelle ran over to Larry.
I'm sorry, Larry. I guess it has to be you after all.
Enough. Just stop talking.
Larry, who had been watching the whole time, said this as he straightened his tie.
Who would want to marry a woman who throws herself at another married man at a meet and greet? Let's call this engagement off, shall we? I'm sure you understand why.
Our parents turned pale. They could only nod in agreement.
Wait a minute. Even you, Larry. I've already told everyone that we're getting married. It will be a problem if you don't marry me.
My sister yelled, to which Larry, with a calm voice, responded.
I think it's about time to excuse myself. Congratulations once again, Thomas. Best wishes.
We could do nothing but bow our heads as Larry left the room.
Wait a minute. Larry? No!
Only the shrill sound of my sister's frantic cries echoed.
I am disgusted. Don't show your face for a while.
Our parents also left the restaurant, casting a contemptuous look at my sister.
Emily, let's go home.
I held Thomas's hand tighter as he reached for mine. Turning around, I saw my sister collapse in a daze. Fast forward a few months, after her engagement with Larry was broken off, my sister seemed depressed for a while, but is now eagerly searching for a new marriage partner. However, she only seems to be seeking high-profile partners, and men who seem to be astounded by her mercenary attitude. My sister, whose beauty has started to fade with age, is likely to have a hard time finding a marriage partner. As for us, Thomas, who was busy for a while, after winning the award, with the award ceremonies, interviews, and film releases, is now actively working on his next project. Thomas has always been kind to me, but he's now renowned as a loving husband, often sharing stories about me in his award interviews, supporting my growing belly due to my pregnancy. I pledged to support Thomas always.
Lying sprawled out in the middle of a night road like a petulant child, my sister-in-law yelled out loud. I just gave him a chance. He's trying to give up his right to monopolize me. I'm teaching him that's such a waste. She's so overconfident, it's almost like a sickness. A sickness. I don't need that kind of right. Can't you see that John is rejecting this right of yours? It's pitiful, really sad. Your misery is laughable. Are you still going to expose it here? Aren't you embarrassed? After being harshly scolded by me, sister-in-law finally stood up and lunged at me. Not smart at all. No way she could win. I'm Sarah, 32 years old and single. I work at a hotel. My job is as important to me as a lover in my life. My father has passed away, and I live with my mother at our family home. My younger brother, 2 years my junior, married his classmate at 20 and now lives in another state. Our family's long-standing problem is his wife, named Rebecca. She's, well, a free spirit. That hasn't changed since she first came to our home. I'll never forget the words she uttered at our first meeting. I'm marrying John. Oh, there are sweets. But I really like those big cream puffs they sell at the convenience store right now. I don't want these, so please go buy me some cream puffs. My parents were dumbstruck. So was I. Oh, brother, why did you fall for her? Rebecca is flashy in appearance, with dyed hair and eyelash extensions, not to mention her flashy nails. But considering her awful personality, the flashy appearance seems like just an add-on. John, my brother, used to say, I find her whimsical nature cute. But I think it's too much. Really, why did he fall for her? I couldn't help but harbor such doubts. Following that, her behavior during the wedding and house hunting was just a series of whims. I'm only wearing a brand new dress. Nothing else is acceptable. I mean, I am the bride, right? Logically, that's correct. What's a deposit? In my theory, it's weird to pay for something like that when I'm doing them a favor by renting their house. My brother's wife frequently spins these mysterious Rebecca theories, bewildering everyone around her. In her world, whatever she thinks is right is absolutely right. During her pregnancy, she ignored everyone's warnings and went swimming in the sea. She doesn't care about the designated days for trash disposal. In meals, she eats only the parts she likes and leaves the rest. Frankly speaking, she's inconsiderate and selfish. Then, on a day leading up to summer, my mother Katie spoke to me with a troubled look. This summer, Rebecca and the grandkids are coming to stay with us. Really? My brother has 4 kids, ages 7, 5, 4, and 2. All boys. They're full of energy, mischievous in a cute, kid-like way. Their visit will surely turn mine and Mom's quiet life into a lively and noisy one. But, well, as cute as my nephews are, their mother, my Rebecca, is not cute at all. Adorable nephews and the troublesome Rebecca, to accept them or not. Is the whole family coming? How long are they staying? That's the thing, John isn't coming. Mom made a troubled face. Really? He's not coming? Just the wife and nephews? Rebecca, the whimsical one, and the 4 energetic brothers alone. Rebecca is slightly less capricious when my brother is watching. John acts as a stopper for her whims. The thought of him not coming filled me with anxiety. Maybe we should decline this visit. Can't we say no to Rebecca's visit? It's a bit too much for me and you. Well, there are some reasons. Just listen. Mom explained a plan to me. I understood the situation. If that's the case, it can't be helped. I'll help as much as I can. I arranged with the hotel where I work to have more shifts from early morning to evening while my nephews are here. And so, the summer vacation arrived. The day started with a clear sky, the refreshing blue feeling exhilarating. My 4 nephews came into our house with all their noisy energy. They rushed into the living room, one after the other. While smiling at their cuteness, I asked the eldest, "Tired from the long trip? Where's Mom?" "She said she's going to Olive Garden and drove off." "What?" It seemed my brother's wife had dropped the 4 kids off and then immediately left for Olive Garden. Wait a minute, I didn't hear about this. When is she coming back? I don't know. Rebecca's strange behavior had already begun, and the youngest nephew is just 2 years old, leaving small children and driving off without even making sure they entered the house. While I was still in shock, the younger kids' shouts pierced my ears. What now? The nephew's eyes sparkled at the sight of snacks Mom had offered. "Candy! Awesome! Can we really eat all this? Won't Grandma get mad?" Their eyes shone with joy as if they'd found treasure, but none of them touched the sweets. Mom smiled and handed out juice to my nephews. "You can eat. These are prepared just for you." "Wow! Awesome!" Mom never gives us candy. She eats it all herself. We can only eat meat and sweets when Dad is around. She says luxuries aren't for kids. We must never tell Mom that we ate candy. Really? My nephews took turns speaking, and I cringed at their words. What has Rebecca been telling these kids? I glanced at Mom. She too looked troubled. The shocking behavior of my nephews continued. They wrapped candy in tissues and hid it in their bags, saving it for when Rebecca wouldn't be around. When a cup tipped over, spilling water, they all turned pale and, sitting on the floor, "Sorry, please don't be mad. Don't hit us." He began to cry. When I turned on the air conditioning as the temperature rose, they dramatically thanked me. Apparently, Rebecca calls this discipline, forcing the kids into such behavior. Watching my nephews, I felt a pang in my chest. This isn't discipline. Rebecca's parenting must be causing deep psychological harm to the children. Mom and I reassured them repeatedly that they didn't need to do these things. I couldn't hold back my complaints about Rebecca. A calm discussion seemed impossible. I had to be direct. But since dropping off the kids, Rebecca hadn't shown up at our house once. Night fell, then morning came, and night again. Rebecca remained out of touch for a whole week. I even contacted my brother, but he just asked us to keep the kids a little longer. I was on the verge of exploding, but Rebecca didn't show up until 10 days later. At 5 p.m., after finishing my work, I was preparing dinner with Mom and the nephews when we heard an engine at the front door. Loud car stereo music echoed into the house. A few seconds after the engine and music stopped, our front door opened. "Everybody, Mom's here!" "It's hot! Where's the beer?" It was Rebecca. She was tanned. Her thin thighs peeking from her short skirt were as thin as my upper arms. Her appearance screamed, I've been enjoying my vacation. And in my head, a gong for battle rang. "Excuse me, who are you?" "Oh, Sarah, starting with dementia already." Rebecca laughed, then cast a cold glance at the nephews. "Hey, I said, where's the beer?" The boys shriveled up, huddled in a corner, their faces hardened, a stark contrast to their earlier joy while peeling onions. "Move it! Get me a beer!" Rebecca's shouting scared the nephews. I quickly stepped between Rebecca and the boys. "We don't have beer in our house." "You knew I was coming and you didn't prepare beer? Are you stupid?" "The only stupid one here is you. Mom, please take the kids outside." Mom nodded. Rebecca, eyes narrowed, lunged at me. "What's your problem? Who do you think you are talking like that?" She came at me, so self-defense is totally justified, right? I firmly grabbed Rebecca's arm. Between her twig-like thinness and my hotel-earned strength, I clearly had the upper hand. While we struggled, Mom quickly took the boys outside. "Ouch! Let go! You're strong like a gorilla. Even a gorilla would raise those kids better than you. I heard you treat them like they're just a waste of food. And what about you, not working? Just leaving your kids and gallivanting around? You're the worst. Where have you even been?" I'm young, I'm allowed to have fun. My husband earns enough, so I don't need to work. Jealous, Sarah? You're just an old, unmarried lady. How long do you plan to be young? You're 30, right? Face reality. You're only 2 years younger than me. Rebecca's face turned red with anger, and she forcefully shook off my grip. She stumbled and fell backwards. Ow! I'm so hurt. I might be bedridden. Give me your bed and bring me beer. You sleep in the storage room. Sleep wherever you want. I had more to say, but it was pointless. Talking to Rebecca is like talking to a wall. I silently went to my room and packed a bag. Returning to the living room, I found Rebecca rummaging through the fridge. She can move just fine, apparently. Without looking at her, I said, I'm going back to my parents' house then. Turning my back on Rebecca's foolish voice, I stormed out of the house. My destination was the hotel where I work, an establishment with 80 years of history. My job as my lover, my workplace as my second home. What's wrong with that? Mom and the nephews had arrived at the hotel before me, waiting. Sorry to keep you waiting. Is everyone here? The nephews seemed uncomfortable in their first visit to a real hotel. I puffed out my chest proudly in front of them. We're all staying here tonight. Here? In this amazing place? Leave it to Aunt Sarah. I'd asked the owner in advance to let us stay if Rebecca visited and I needed to get the nephews away. He kindly agreed, concerned about the boys' treatment by Rebecca. It's the off-season in summer here, so there's always room to spare. No worries about finding a place to stay. There's a pool and a spa. We're allowed to use them. Really? The nephew's eyes sparkled. Quietly, so they couldn't hear, Mom whispered to me, John is almost home. Rebecca's car GPS isn't moving, so he'll start now. I nodded at Mom's whisper. Hoping my brother would handle things well, I led Mom and the nephews to their rooms for the night. The nephews were a bit overwhelmed by their first experience in a luxury hotel. A young chef prepared a simple meal for us on short notice. We were surprised, planning to eat out, but it was deliciously made in a rush, a testament to a professional skill. Thinking about how this was the work of a young chef, I felt bright about our hotel's future. The delicious meal filled the nephews' bellies, and they regained their usual energy. After much excitement, they fell asleep as soon as they hit the bed. Mom dozed off while putting them to sleep. I stepped out alone for a drink from the vending machine. I checked my mobile phone, wondering about John and Rebecca. And just then, John called. Perfect timing. I tapped the call button. Hello, John. Sarah, sorry for the trouble. How were the kids? All good? John sounded tired, but concerned about the kids first, an apology in his voice. He's doing well as an adult, and as a parent, I think. So different from Rebecca. We're fine here. They're happily resting now, already asleep. What happened on your end? Well, it went as planned. You taking the kids and letting Rebecca be free helped. I got the freedom to move and collected evidence. Got her going to a hotel with a man and being affectionate in the car. All on camera. Quiet anger laced John's voice. Rebecca had been shady for a while, sensitive about message notifications, and speaking sweetly on the phone. Started treating the kids terribly too. There were always unexplained expenses, but her recent spending was excessive. She knew too much about new leisure facilities, but she was sly, never leaving evidence for John. That's when he consulted Mom, planned to catch Rebecca's infidelity this summer, and wanted help for the divorce. Mom's hesitant answer when I asked if John was coming was because of this. My brother took the day off work to coincide with Rebecca's visit to our house and followed her. He had secretly installed a GPS in the car to track her. Relying on it, he trailed her and gathered evidence. His goal was achieved. All my restraint in not exploding at Rebecca was worth it. That's tough. Good job. So did Rebecca admit to cheating? But with Rebecca's personality, I doubted she'd admit her faults. How did John manage it? More like she had to. She hopped between multiple men in those 10 days. Faced with photos of her with different guys, she couldn't deny it. Wait, she had more than one affair partner? Yeah, kept saying it was just fun, not serious. But I told her I couldn't stay married to someone who plays around with so many men. She cried, begging not to divorce, not wanting to pay compensation. It's almost funny now. Typical Rebecca, self-centered to the core. Her ability to think and scream so selfishly is almost a talent. What's Rebecca doing now? She's lying spread eagle in front of the house, screaming her head off. It's such a nuisance to the neighbors. I just called the police. I'm coming over. It must be hard for you to handle this alone. When I arrived at the house, the police were already there, surrounding Rebecca, who was still lying on the ground, loudly insisting her point of view. I'm saying if you don't want a divorce, I'll stop making a scene. Just say you won't divorce me, John. Why can't you understand? After leaving your kids for 10 days to hop between men, you have no right to act so high and mighty. No! Please stop yelling. It's late at night. Rebecca, sprawled and throwing a tantrum, was a sorry sight. John and the officers were at a loss. Married women, get more attention! Men, flock to me. Let me have my fun! Her statement was absurd. I approached calmly and raised my voice. That just means without being married, you think you have no appeal. Rebecca glared sharply at my sudden appearance. I could see John's relief. Tired, huh? Leave it to your big sister. No sane person would deal with a foolish, selfish old lady like you. You're not having fun. You're being played. What did you say? Rebecca's face flushed with anger. Maybe something hit a nerve. If you think I'm wrong, go to those men now. You'll either be rejected or dumped. Afraid of that, so you can't leave here? Huh? That's not true. I was just giving John a chance. He's throwing away his right to have me all to himself. I'm teaching him it's a waste. Her overconfidence is sickening. No one needs that right. John rejected that right. It's pitiful. You don't feel embarrassed showing this pathetic face here? Rebecca stood up, fists raised, but a strong officer prevented her from lashing out at me. After struggling with the police, Rebecca reluctantly lowered her fists. You can't win against them, you know. How foolish. How foolish. She silently got into her car and drove off. I sighed as her car sped away. Then John murmured quietly, She was drinking earlier. That might be drunk driving. What? Hearing John, an officer got into his car and took off after her. She'll probably be caught soon. She was caught quickly, predictably. Upon seeing the police following her, Did you chase me because you were attracted to me? Fallen for me? Rebecca exclaimed. The police methodically arrested her for driving under the influence, thankfully before she caused an accident. I'm grateful to the police for preventing more victims of Rebecca's twisted logic. Even after her arrest, Rebecca kept making selfish excuses. Non-cooperative and a flight risk, she was detained and charged. Once released, Rebecca returned to her parents' home. Afterwards, Rebecca's parents sent a completed divorce application to my brother. He filed the papers, thus severing his ties with her. Currently, my brother and his ex-wife are in court over compensation. The ex-wife claims it's unfair that she's the only one being asked for compensation, insisting that all her boyfriends should also share the burden and confess to every single one of her relationships. My brother has left everything to his lawyer, confident of winning without much effort. Strangely, she's also seeking damages from her boyfriends. I'm not sure how well that will pan out, but I suspect it won't go well. As for custody, my brother smoothly secured it. He brought the kids back to our family home. He found a new job locally and is happily living with Mom and the children. As for me, I found love. The guy is the young chef who prepared meals for my nephews and me when we sought refuge in the hotel. He developed a fondness for me after seeing how I eagerly ate the hastily prepared food and played wholeheartedly with the nephews. It's a bit embarrassing to date a colleague, but our co-workers are happy for us. Soon, I'll be moving out of my family home to live with him. He's certainly captured my heart through my stomach. I'm really excited about starting this new chapter of my life.